Hi all, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we finish our look at the Razing of Monarchia with Lorgar facing Guilliman. This is part 3 of our series looking at the Razing of Monarchia, so if you haven't seen the previous 2 uploads covering this, then go check them out first before coming back and continuing on with this one. Spoiler warning to begin with, the events we are covering today are from the Horus Heresy novel, The First Heretic. And I really recommend you read this novel for yourself first, because in my opinion that's how you get the most enjoyment out of the lore, by reading the events for yourself first. And I have to say, this book is a very pivotal book in the Horus Heresy series, so if you haven't checked it out yet, you really should. But not only that, by buying the books we help to support Games Workshop and the Great Black Library, who without them, well, we haven't got all these fantastic lore stories to talk about. But with that said, let's jump straight in. The Ultramarines remained watching the kneeling, trembling word bearers in absolute silence. The custodians stood alongside Guilliman while the Primarch conferred with their apparent leader, whose helm bore a red crest to match his cloak. Argel Tal saw Corpheron rising with painful slowness. Despite his Terminator armour making the task easier with dense joints of snarling servos, neither Argel Tal nor Zathan offered to help. Both of them made for the Primarch. While the word bearers struggled to their feet, Lorgar crashed to his knees at last. The Emperor's golden sun stared at the surrounding city as if he recognised none of it, with no idea how he had reached this place. Dead eyes too cold to cry looked out upon his shamed legion and the rubble of the lesson they needed to learn. Argel Tal reached him first. Instinct compelled him to remove his own helm, and he disengaged the seals in his armoured collar, standing unmasked before his Primarch. "Aurelian," he said. For the first time, Argel Tal breathed the scorch air of Monarchia. Unaltered by merciful filters, it reeked of the oil burned in 1,000 years of industry. Zathan's earlier comment was haunting in its truth. It smelled like they'd lost a war. He didn't dare touch Lorgar. With his hand outstretched, just short of resting on his Primarch's shoulder, he whispered his father's name. Lorgar turned to regard him, his eyes lacking even a shadow of recognition. "Aurelian," Argel Tal said again. He glanced at the staring figures of Guilliman and the custodians. "My Primarch, come. We must return to our ships." For the first time, his hand rested on Lorgar's armoured shoulder, where a scroll of scripture had once hung. Ignoring his touch, Lorgar threw back his head and roared. The captain gripped the Primarch's golden pauldron, doing all he could to keep the demigod steady. Lorgar screamed, deep and low and long, at the uncaring sky. It lasted longer than mortal lungs would allow. And there we have it, the first true moment of the Horus Heresy unfolding. Yes, it's a long time until blows are struck, but this is the moment. This is the moment. I've spoken of Horus's arrogance before being a chink in his armour, and it absolutely is. But here, this shattering of Lorgar's spirit by the Emperor it's the opening that chaos needs. It's hard to understand just how much Lorgar has been crushed by the Emperor here. His entire life has been spent around religious devotion. Just as, say, Guilliman's has been about doing his duty, or Angron's has been around fighting, Lorgar's has been spent in religious zealotry thanks to Corpheron. He was raised completely immersed in it, and he's just had it all ripped away by the being he worshipped the most, his father, the Emperor. When the anguished cry finally faltered, he ran his bare fingers along the broken ground. With a shaking hand, The Primarch smeared black ash across his face, tarnishing the features with the powdered bones of the perfect city. Zaphen's voice was low and urgent. The Ultramarines are bearing witness to this. We must get him to safety. Lorgar's mask of ashes was already streaked with tears that cut trails in the dust. The two warriors renewed their grips, trying to bring the golden giant to his feet. For a wonder, instead of the expected slackness in his limbs, Lorgar spat onto the ground and rose with their aid. Both of them felt the trembling in Lorgar's limbs. Neither of them spoke it. Guilliman, the Primarch, spoke his brother's name with an envenomed tongue. A shrug of his shoulders pushed Argyltau and Zaphen aside, immediately forgotten. And here we have the anger, a source for Lorgar's pain to focus on, to vent some of the repressed feelings he's got burning inside of him now. Yes, they may be Primarchs, but again, as we have seen before, a very human reaction, a very human instinct. When you've been hurt emotionally, you react with anger. Emotion flooded back into Lorgar's eyes. His gaze was locked on Guilliman, who returned it passionless, where Lorgar was inflamed. "Does it please you?" the word-bearer lord sneered. "To witness my shame?" Guilliman didn't answer, but Lorgar wouldn't back down. "Does it please you?" he pressed. "Do you enjoy seeing my efforts reduced to ashes while our father favours you?" Guilliman breathed slowly, utterly unfazed. He spoke as if no question had been asked. "Our father entrusted me to inform you of one last matter." "Then speak it and be gone." Lorgar reached for his Crozius on the ground and dragged it up from the ash. Dust rained from its spiked head. These 5 warriors of the Legiones Custodes, the Ultramarines Primarch inclined his head to them. "They are not alone. 15 more remain on my flagship. Our father has ordered them to accompany you, brother." Argyltau closed his eyes at this final indignity. After kneeling in the ashes of failure, after being told by the Emperor that all their achievements were worthless, now this. "I refuse. They are not needed." "Our father believes otherwise," Guilliman said. "These warriors are to be his eyes as your legion rejoins the Great Crusade." "And does our father set hounds to watch over you? Do they reside in your precious empire of Ultramar, whispering of your every move? I see the shadow of a smile on your lips. These others do not know you as I do, brother. Our sons may not see the amusement in your eyes, but I am not blind to such nuance. You have always possessed an active imagination. Today has proven that. My devotion is my strength." Lorgar clenched his perfect teeth. "You have no heart and no soul." A snort blackened his angelic features with a disgusted twist. "I pray that one day you feel as I feel. Would you smile if one of Ultramar's worlds died in fire? Tarentus, Espandor, Calf? You should return to your fleet, brother." Guilliman uncrossed his arms, revealing the golden aquila emblazoned across his chest. The eagle's spread wings glinted with reflected sunlight. "You have much work to do." It's apparent that Guilliman and Lorgar certainly haven't got the closest of relationships here. And indeed, you wouldn't expect them to. You'd be hard pressed to find 2 more different of the brothers. As is very much reinforced in the writing here, the constant referrals to Guilliman being emotionless in his mannerisms. But as we've seen elsewhere in the Horus Heresy novels, Guilliman is actually far from emotionless. He's just as emotional as the rest of his brothers. He has his doubts, his fears, his anger, his pride, his guilt, just as any human. He just does a better job at keeping it hidden behind that mask of duty. But I'd love to know what exactly is going through Guilliman's head here. His brother's anger and hurt being displayed straight at his face. Does he pity Lorgar? Does he feel it's deserved? Or is he even enjoying the sight of his brother's punishment? Obviously, I don't think that's the case. In my opinion, as always, he's just doing his duty. But you certainly get the impression Lorgar is not one of the brothers Guilliman looks up to, like we've seen with the Lion and Horus. Indeed, it's quite the opposite. You have always possessed an active imagination. Today has proven that. But still, he has no enjoyment in performing this task, and he most likely realises that the best way of dealing with this situation is just to be matter of fact. Any emotional conversation with an emotional Lorgar is only going to inflame an already tense situation. But this demeanour can often come across as being superior, that you are better than those around you, and it probably goes a long way to explain why Guilliman is actually looked down upon by several of his brothers. The blow came from nowhere. In its wake, the air rang with the echo of metal on metal, the clashing chime of a great cathedral bell. It was almost beautiful. A Primarch lay in the dust, surrounded by his warriors. None present had ever witnessed such a thing. Argyltal's bolter was raised, aimed at the ranks of Ultramarines who mirrored the gesture in kind. 100 gun barrels levelled at 100,000. The 7th captain needed 3 attempts to form words. "Hold your fire," he whispered into the General Fox channel. "Do not fire unless fired upon." Lorgar rested the immense Crozius mace on his golden shoulder. His grey eyes flickered with uncertain emotion as he bared his teeth at the fallen Lord of Macragge. "You will never mock me again, brother. Is that understood?" Guilliman's rise was slow, almost hesitant. The golden eagle on his breastplate was split, a valley crack running through its body. "You go too far," a soft voice said. Malcador, First Lord of Terror, still clutched his staff. It was all that kept him standing. "You go too far. Be silent, worm. The next time you bleed my patience dry, I will do more than slap you aside." Guilliman was on his feet now. He turned an expressionless face back to his brother. "Is your tantrum concluded, Lorgar? I must return to the crusade." "Come, my son." Corphoron's corpse sneer was directed at Guilliman, even as his words were meant for his Primarch. "Come, we have much to discuss." Lorgar exhaled and nodded once. The anger was fading, and no longer offered a shield against shame. Yes, back to the ships. All companies, Corphoron spat across the Vox. Return to orbit. "Yes, First Captain," Argyltal replied with the other. "By your word." Wow, what a great scene. Lorgar just venting his anger. You can feel the emotion just dripping off the lines. When he says, "You will never mock me again, brother." Oh, you can feel it. And then his disrespect to Malcador. "Be silent, worm. The next time you bleed my patience dry, I will do more than slap you aside." Now look, we've got a hurting Malcador here from the hit before, but Lorgar, my friend, you don't want a piece of Malcador, okay? He eats War Masters for breakfast. What do you think he'll do to you? But honestly, I think Malcador is genuinely upset to see what Lorgar's going through. We know he cares a great deal for the Primarchs, and is probably very hurt to feel Lorgar's anger at him. And Guilliman? Guilliman's restraint here is very impressive. He's just been cracked straight to the chest, sent flying back in amongst his own troops. Let's be honest, it's absolutely a cheap shot from Lorgar. And he just brushes it off, not rising to the bait. And if anything, he even comes out of that encounter as the victor, with the simple line, "Is your tantrum concluded? I've got work to do, mate." Instantly making Lorgar feel like a child and completely diffusing the situation. You can almost hear the unspoken line, and you wonder why I look down on you. But still, what did you guys think of it all? Can you understand Lorgar's anger? Was he right or in the wrong? Should Guilliman have tried to talk more openly with his brother? Or did he handle the situation as best he could? Drop me a comment down below with your thoughts. As always, a huge thank you to all of my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me, and I truly appreciate it. If you're new, then please consider subscribing to help the channel continue to grow and join our great community. And if you like this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you guys again real soon.